We're going to go back to our earlier story now, the government's decision to set up an independent task force to assess complaints of sexual and other abuse in the Australian Defence Force. Our political editor, Lyndall Curtis, is with the opposition spokesman for Defence Sciences, Stuart Robert, in Canberra.
Stuart Robert, welcome to ABC News 24.
Thanks, Lyndall.
The minister's announced a task force will take over looking at the allegations of abuse in the military that were discussed in the DLA Piper report, more than 700 plausible allegations. Is the task force the right way to handle this issue?
Absolutely, and I made the point on behalf of the Coalition this morning. The Minister received the report in April. He's now established a task force led by a very fine Australian, Len Robert-Smith QC, a great reputation, a great standard and bearing to what he's doing. I think he's made the right decision here.
Given, though, that it's just set up a Royal Commission into the sexual abuse of children, would not a Royal Commission into this issue have been a similar way to deal with it, or would that have been too much?
Well, there's two very separate issues here. Putting aside the Royal Commission into the children issue, here you've got a range of people that have come forward, almost 800 over the last 62 years, to say they suffered abuse at the hands of people within the Defence Force. Those allegations have been shown to have some founding. The idea of a judicial review led by the task force commander, Len Robert-Smith, will outline all of these and look at it. He'll put in place an ex gratia scheme in terms of a compensation payment. There'll be a capacity for restorative justice. There'll be capacity for counselling. And if there are a range of issues that need the powers of a Royal Commission, the task force has that power to recommend it.
But those would be much more limited investigations, wouldn't they?
The terms of reference would seem to indicate that they would be very specific. If there were, for example, a range of incidences at a single base or location or time period, that may cause grounds for a wider use of such a commission.
The Minister also gave an apology to those who'd suffered abuse, an apology to Parliament. There wasn't enough notification for people to get to Parliament. Do you think the timing of that was appropriate?
Well, it's difficult to know what the government's agenda is in terms of what they've got to pack into a day, and it is the last week of Parliament, and of course it gets very busy. But I thought the Minister making an apology, actually saying he was sorry, was right. On behalf of the Coalition, I echoed those sentiments and echoed the same comments. If things have gone wrong, which they have, it's appropriate for the nation's leaders to stand up and say, you know what, organisations under our command got it wrong. We are sorry. Let's go forward now and make it right.
What do you think is the way forward for the Defence Force? They've set up what has been called a pathways process to deal with a range of issues, including abuse, but also the treatment of women in the Defence Force. Is that process enough?
It is. A line's been drawn in the sand in terms of the judicial process now going ahead, looking at the cases of abuse in the past. The CDF is personally leading the pathways to change, to how they indeed change and be more reflective of community standards. The CDF has backed it personally. I think he'll provide tremendous leadership for it, and the Coalition supports the government 100% in the direction they're taking.
As you say, these allegations have gone back a long way. Allegations have been raised from time to time over the last few decades. Is this process enough to effectively draw a line in the sand and make sure, to the greatest extent that can be done possible, that this won't happen again?
Yes, I believe it is. We're talking about a task force headed up by a former Supreme Court Justice and two-star. On that task force is a former Sex Discrimination Commissioner, a former Secretary of the Department of AGs, the current Assistant Commissioner of the Federal Police. It's a pretty powerful judicial task force that will go through each issue, look at its merits, refer it to the police if need be, refer to counselling, demand restorative justice, provide compensation if necessary. It's a pretty powerful lineup to deal with issues.
If I could ask you one question about Parliament today. Your side of politics directed all its questions through the Deputy Opposition Leader Julie Bishop to the Prime Minister on the matter of legal work she did for setting up or giving legal advice on the establishment of what was called the AWU Workplace Relations Association. There haven't been allegations that the Prime Minister was involved in the fraud associated with that. There have been questions which he's dealt with a number of times. Why is it worth spending that much question time going over, in some circumstances, ground that has been gone over before?
Well, Julie Bishop is a very accomplished lawyer. She, in fact, was the first female managing partner of a major law firm, in this case Clayton Utz in Perth. If her professional judgment is that some questions remain remained unanswered, which is her professional judgment, and I certainly back it, then Parliament, or question time in Parliament, is certainly the appropriate place to actually air those questions.
Stuart, Robert, thank you very much for your time.
My